Hi, I'm Chad. You're watching Squarebody Stuff. Welcome back to this Squarebody Stuff shop, where we are going to be working on Squeaky in this video, my 78 C10 with a 339 stroker, grading low 4-speed, 14 bolt rear end. If you know him, you know him. If not, that's just the bare basics of what he is. What we're going to be doing in this video is I'm going to talk about some starter issues we had on this guy. We're going to be talking about what's in that red coffee can, that it may be small but kind of significant to what we're doing. And also that fan right there, we're going to be installing that. Also, I've got some fenders. Bam, right there. They're going to be cutting some bracing and as much out of it as we can to lighten this guy up, trying to get under 4,000 pounds. But before we get into that, you need to go check out my merchandise site, squarebodystuff.shop. We got t-shirts, we've got hats. Well, the hats are a lot cleaner than this one. And we got patches, just like this. We've got some stickers. And, well, like the 339 stickers. Yeah, let's see that. 339 stickers on the valve covers. I've got the small Squarebody Stuff stickers like that, the round ones. Got the big ones. And we've also got the small and large OG Squarebody Stuff stickers. And don't forget the keychains. Again, all that can be found on squarebodystuff.shop. And from now until, Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day is coming up. Now until February 14th, use promo code C10LOVE and get 10% off your purchase. All stickers are free shipping. Anything over $50 is also free shipping. First thing I want to get into is my starter issues I was having on this 339. It's a weird thing, and I want to go over it because it might help somebody out. Now, back when we had this engine on the startup stand, I was using the starter I used on the 305. I never had any issues with it. It worked great on the 339. The only change was the same block, but the only change was the flywheel. But on the startup stand, it engaged perfectly. Never had any issues, sounded good and all that stuff. Once we got it in the truck, I left the starter on it when we installed it in the truck and made it to the bell housing and all that stuff. Still worked great, nothing wrong with it. But I do want to make note that I do have an aftermarket, I think it's an old school McLeod shatterproof or steel bell housing. It's not the factory aluminum one. And it's the same bell housing I had on the big block that was in here. Never had any issues with nothing. But while we had Squeaky on the dyno up at Horsepower Proving Grounds, go back and check that video out. That was a pretty cool video. We got to see what this 339 actually made to the hubs. About halfway through the dyno session, the starter started making some really weird noises. I mean, it would engage, but then it'd go Ree! And yeah, it sounded like it was just something wasn't lined up quite right. And I thought, well, the starter's probably just going out, bearings or bushing or something. And we just finished out the dyno session. Everything was fine, still making noise. Got it back in the shop, started messing around with it. It kept getting louder and louder. So I pulled the starter out to see what was going on. Bushings, everything seemed to be fine. So I put a shim in it, and it's actually made it worse. It actually made it to where it wouldn't even engage. And after I pulled the starter completely out and everything and installed shims, took the shims out, done this, that, everything, it just got worse and worse. It wouldn't engage the flywheel. And it was aggravating because it didn't make any sense because it was doing just fine. There was nothing wrong with the starter. And just to make sure it wasn't the starter, I pulled the starter off the big block that was in this truck. And, you know, it done fine with everything, so I put it on there. Same issue. Now here's a diagnostic tip for you. If you have an issue and you replace a part thinking that is the issue and you have zero change, that part is not your problem. Put the original part back on, start back from where you began, because you may compound the issue. Don't keep adding stuff to an issue. So that starter had the same problem. So I went back to the original starter that I started out with, which is this guy right here. Now you can see I've done some whittling on this, and I'll get to that in just a minute, because I thought with shims it got worse, it didn't do any difference. So and this is the starter that was on the 305 originally. So I tried to grind down this and keep it as flat and everything as possible. I could see right in here where it was touching the block a little bit, so I made sure everything was flat. Tried to take it down as level and even as possible to maybe make the gear engage the flywheel a little bit better. That didn't work. It made it worse. So I took a little break from it, because sometimes that's a good thing to do. If you're having an issue and you're beating your head against the wall, just step away from it, go do something else, just take a break from it, and then come back to it. So when I came back to it, I got to noticing that the nose of the starter had some marks on it. And you can see right here where it's still touching a little bit. Some of that is just from installing it and kind of walling it around. But it was the nose of this, for some reason on the small block, it was hitting the bell housing. I didn't have any issues when I had the big block in there with the same bell housing. Not going to figure that one out. It is what it is. But our issue was this nose was hitting the bell housing, and what really made me think of that is I had some marks on there, but also when I had the starter up in there, if I would loosen the bolts to put shims in, the starter wouldn't drop down. It wouldn't even hardly move. I almost had to take the bolts completely out to get it to move enough to get the shims in there. And if you're not familiar with starter shims, it's these guys right here. Typically you would take the outside bolt all the way out, leave this bolt in, but just loosen it up enough to slide your shim in. You will slide your shim in up against that bolt, put this bolt all the way in, tighten it up, and this will shim your starter away from the flywheel. Like I said earlier, I couldn't drop the starter down enough just by loosening up that bolt, so I realized something was binding up in there. And that's when I found the marks on the nose of the starter. I started investigating closer. So as a test run, since I'd already messed around with this starter and ground off that, I ground off the nose of the starter where it was hitting. It is a little thin right there, but it shouldn't be too big of a deal. And I had to shim it back to where it should be because I took quite a bit off this pad. But I got the shim up and it worked perfectly. So I pulled this starter back out, put the starter that was off the big block back in there with no shims, tried it out after I ground the nose off on it. I kept installing it, make sure it would go in there without any marks on the nose. And once I got to the point where it wasn't making any marks, wasn't binding up, had plenty of room in there, starts up perfectly. All right, now we got him starting up good. I was doing some more cleanup while I got the fenders off. These steering knuckles in the front end had 46 years of road grime caked up on them. And I spent some time out here in the shop, just me and the radio and Captain Morgan, cleaning up everything, and I didn't paint it. I thought about just squirting it with some black paint, but sometimes that looks worse than just leaving it raw. But I saved most of what I scraped off to see how much weight I'm going to save off the front end of Ole Squeaky. All right, before I weigh this, put in your comments below what you think this much stuff weighs. It's all the garbage I got off the front end. Got your comments in? Let's weigh this. All right, we'll put an empty coffee can on there. We'll zero it out. And we're weighing in pounds. 6.6. Almost 7 pounds. And I'm sure there's probably another pound or so in behind the backing plates and all that stuff, because I didn't pull the rotors off. I didn't get that deep into it. Got everything I could reach from out and around it. It may not seem very significant, but 7 pounds here, 5 pounds there, a few pounds there, it adds up. To continue on some of the weight savings, there's some stuff I'm going to cut out of this radiator support or core support, whatever you want to call it, on both sides. I think I could save another 5 to 10 pounds there. So 5 to 10 pounds there, 7 pounds with just the dirt. There's 20 pounds. And replacing those dual fans, which I have no idea what those are out of. I just picked them up at the scrap yard or salvage yard. They were just laying there. I think they're GM, but replacing those heavy things, 2 fans with this guy here, not sure what brand it is. It does say made in the USA, so it got to be pretty good. I got it with the aluminum radiator that I put in Cream Puff, my other truck. Ugly Truck Experience give me the radiator and fan. If you're not familiar with them, go check them out. It's Ugly Truck Experience YouTube channel. Emily and Jerry, they do a lot of content on LS swapping these old square bodies, and yeah, go check them out. They got a lot of interesting stuff and a lot of good information on there. So we're going to see what those dual fans and the single fan, the difference in weight there. Another thing I'm going to do for weight savings is on these fenders, I'm going to cut out as much as I possibly can out of the inner structure and be able to still use my hood hinges. Now let's get this old fan out of here. I put a new plug on it. I've got some weather pack connectors. I'll make a new plug. And just go over real quick how I've got this set up. These fans are both run off the same relay, which I probably should have it set up where they're off individual relays, but we're undoing it anyway, so it don't matter. But I've got a thermostatic switch or thermal switch on the intake, on the coolant passage, that whenever it gets up to, and I don't remember the temperatures, when it gets up to a certain temperature, it makes that connection, kicks in the relay, turns the fans on. Once it cools down enough, shuts the power off the relay and shuts the fan off. So it's all automatic. It's on ignition, so whenever I turn the ignition off, the fans will go off. Yeah, you can do it either way. Some people like to leave it to where if you turn the key off, the fan still will stay running to keep continuing cooling things off without the ignition on. I like to do it with the ignition off. Anyhow, we will get these fans out. Let's see how much these things weigh, if my scale will weigh them, versus the new fan. I've got these on there. I haven't turned it on yet. I'll turn it on and that'll actually weigh these. And I can't see it. And then we can see the difference in the new fan. Yeah, it was over. I think this only goes like 14 pounds, so it's over. All right, so my little scale will only go to 11 pounds. So when they got the bathroom scale, let's check this out. See if it'll weigh on this. Okay, it says 11.4. So 11.5 pounds probably, give or take. I think this is too light to weigh on this scale. Yeah, it won't read on that scale, but this is too light for this scale. All right, the weight of this fan is 5.3. That's 6.1 pounds. So I'm going to keep track of it. So far we've got almost 13 pounds weight savings just in dirt and changing out fans. Now I'm not going to kid anybody. If we really want to get Squeaky down to a certain race weight, I've got plenty I could lose to. And I'm working on it. Wish me luck. And how this fan mounts, or a lot of these aftermarket fans mount, is they have these deals here. That's one end. It's kind of like a hex head on it that holds into that. The fan, they've also got mounting tabs if you want to put nuts and different ways to mount them, but the easiest way is just to go through your radiator, and hopefully these are long enough. They should be. And it's got these washers on there, and once you, I can't get my hands to work, that's just a washer. This one is split, so you can just push it on to get it set. Now to get it back off, these are threaded. You'll have to spin it to get it back off. And if for some reason one of these breaks, or you don't have these, you've bought a used fan that you didn't get the mounting hardware, you can order it. Or if you just need to fasten it in a bind, you can also just use a regular zip tie. Which these are kind of thinner ones, so I had to stack some washers. And this could go through your radiator, and then you take another zip tie. You're basically just going to use the end of it. It doesn't matter which side it goes on, but you might have to put a washer there too for the fan side. And just zip it on there, pull it tight, and you can mount your fan with zip ties too. And obviously you don't want to cinch them up too tight, but it just goes in between the cores. These fins right here, you'll have to go in between those. It doesn't really hurt anything. But it's mounted nice and solid. The fan spins, it's not hitting the radiator. We get it plugged in and get the plate back on the radiator, and I'll hook the battery up, see if it works. Now that I got everything hooked up, I've got a jumper wire. It's just a double flat blade that I could jump this switch. Get in there, we'll see if this works. Oh yeah. We got air. So between the dirt and the fans, we've dropped some weight, about 13 pounds or so, and it looks a whole lot cleaner. Those other fans, like I said, don't know what they come off of. I just got them at a wrecking yard a while back, several years ago, so they worked great. But this truck doesn't really need dual fans. Usually, if they ever kicked on, they just kick on for just a couple seconds, really, a couple minutes, and then that's it, unless I'm running it really hard. Now there's a possibility if I do put this in a burnout contest, I may put the dual fans back on for no-name nationals or something like that, or if I go burnout. But this single fan for drag racing and all that stuff will be just fine. The next thing I'm gonna do is load up a death wheel on the 4-inch grinder and start cutting away at this radiator support. Now I'm going to take the battery tray and all that stuff out of the way, get the overflow tank out of the way, and I'm going to do about the same thing on this side as I did on the other side. And as you can see, this core support wasn't the best. It needed a lot of work on this side, which that's pretty typical. The battery, it ends up rusting out a bunch of stuff down there if it starts leaking. This battery tray has been replaced before, but it's kind of in bad shape. Eventually we're going to be moving this battery back to the passenger side toolbox that's in the bed. Not really any weight savings there, just weight distribution. We'll have weight back in the back where we need it, get it off the nose. Alright, I got the passenger side cut away. And I've got it kind of dressed up to where there's not a whole lot of sharp edges. Same thing on the driver's side. And I forgot with the fans, I forgot to weigh these guys, which these brackets went with that fan. And I weighed them, and they're 0.6 pounds. So with the dirt and the fans and the brackets, we're up to 13.3 pounds. Now let's weigh this pile that I've just cut off. That's right at 8 pounds even. So let's add that to our deal. I'll say core support, 8 pounds. Now so far we're up to 21.3 pounds of weight savings. It's just kind of a fun thing to do, get rid of some extra weight. Now we all know that this truck is not going to be super competitive. It's not going to be setting any world records. Well, maybe the world record for the fastest granny low 4-speed. Let's shoot for that. Now I'm going to start whittling away at the inner part of the fender structure. I got to leave enough for the hinges, and for right now I got to leave enough for the battery tray on the passenger side. Driver's side I won't need to do any of that. So yeah, I'm going to cut as much away as I can, still keep some sort of structural integrity for the hood hinges and the battery tray on this fender. Now eventually I would like to, for race mode, add some pins to the back side so I can have a lift off hood for when we're trying to trying to go racing. Take the hinges off, because I bet those hinges and springs, we need to weigh those, see what those are going to save. But that will be for if we're just going to be going to the track and trying to do anything competitive, I guess, because why not? Because race truck. Alright, got the driver's side fender done, all the fenders done, hood's back on. Saved as much weight as I could for now. Alright, so I've got some maths going on here. These are the totals. The dirt, the fans, the bracket says 13.3 pounds. what I got off of the core support was 8 pounds, so that's 21.3 pounds is what we cut off the core support, and the dirt and the fans, left fender, right fender, all of that total is 31 pounds. So yeah, we've cut out about 31 pounds out of this thing. Now I did cut out some of the hood before, and I didn't weigh what I cut out of the hood, but the hood weighs about 50 pounds. That's what I've got here. Now I weighed the hinges. They're about a little over 7 pounds a piece, so that's 14.28 pounds for the hinges. So yeah, the hinges and the hood was almost 65 pounds. And I'm thinking, you know, if I take them to the track, I take the hood and the hinges, that's 65 pounds. Really, the point is, I just want to save some weight on the front of this truck and just play around. This truck is just a play toy for me. Whatever all that means, I don't know. I'm just playing around and showing you guys what I'm doing in my shop. You know, I'm just a big kid playing with my toy. So hopefully we can get Squeaky. You know, my goal is to get him under 4,000 pounds with me in him. We're gonna get there. I think we're pretty close. I did put him on the scales after I put the 339 in there to see what the weight difference between the big block 454 and the aluminum headed small block was, and it was around 300 pounds. But I didn't have the hood on him, and I didn't have the exhaust. So, you know, what he weighs now versus race weight, it's all a matter of finding that out. We'll figure all that out later on down the road, but this is what I've done to Squeaky. Hope you enjoyed what you've seen. It's kind of cold in here. I've let the fire die down. I'm ready to go in and take a nap, get ready to go to work. So yeah, at least Squeaky's all back together. I could take him to town, drive him around a little bit, have some fun with him. If the weather warms up, it's still down in the single digits. That's not very fun to drive him with no heater in him. So anyways, we've got some other projects coming up. I got several trucks to work on, so stay tuned. Until then, y'all keep your square bodies rolling. We'll catch you later.